y'all's attention, please. We're going to get started. I want to welcome all of you to the first Ag meeting of '06. Before we get started, I'd like to ask Representative James to open us with a prayer, but before he does that, I found out a while ago that longtime chairman of this committee, Henry Reeves, is in pretty bad shape. And Representative Black, would you give us kind of an update before LYNMORE has a prayer, and maybe we can think about him? Wait a minute, Matt. Before we start, if y'all would mash your buttons on these mics you're talking into so it'll show up here and I won't be cutting the wrong fellow on. Thank you.
Be glad to, Mr. Chairman. Had a chance to visit with Representative Reeves right after Christmas. He's in the Brooks County Hospital. He's had several strokes. He's in a position to where that looks like that his family may have to try to get him in a nursing home. Had a good visit with him. His mind was still sound, was able to carry on. Very good discussion. There were times that he would lapse back and get discussion back into his early years growing up in Kissimmee. His family is looking at trying to get him in a nursing home. And it is going to be a challenge because Henry Reeves has devoted 40-odd years of his life to serving the people of Georgia and the people involved in agriculture, and he's never tried to accumulate a lot of wealth. And his family, I in fact met with some of his family members and give them some guidance on what they were going to be faced with. They do have a challenge because his home, they still has some debt on his home, and I don't know about the finances, but I know that is going to be a challenge for his family. But Henry has kept up with the goings on in state legislature and still interested, and I do enjoy the opportunity to get to visit with him every opportunity that I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ed. And more, have prayer, please, sir.
Yes, another time, please. Creator of this great universe, Almighty God, we thank you for this day. We thank you, Father, for your traveling grace, and we pray your blessing upon this meeting. And Father God, we pray your blessing upon the great leader, Mr. Henry, our Chairman Reeves. Father God, just thank you for letting me know and letting me work with him, because he is a great man, and he has done much for this state in the field of agriculture. We just pray, oh Heavenly Father, that you will bless his family. And Father God, we pray that your blessing upon this meeting, that we will do the right thing. In your son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. It's obvious, I guess, to y'all that there's been a lot of changes in these committee meetings and the way they're doing as far as being broadcast. I guess you call yourself on TV. Don't get nervous. If you say something you don't mean to, if you let me know quick enough, we might can even stop it before it goes out. Don't trust me on being that quick. I would like to tell you to all y'all out there and any of us up here, if you see any changes that needs to be made, please tell us, and we'll try to arrange it to where you can. I did cut the lights up out there so y'all can see what you're writing and we can see who's talking. And you are, if you're going to make a comment, please let me recognize you where you can come up to the mic. And we will still ask y'all questions and ask for your input on things. And I hope you'll be willing to give it to us. We have two things to take up today. One is House Bill 999, and then the other one is Dr. Scott Angle, who's the new dean. If you'll talk to us, we'd like to reverse the order because technology is messing with us one more time. Dean Angle wanted to do a PowerPoint for us of what's happening at the college. So we're going to do 999 first. I do want to say the best thing that I've seen in the budget, in the big budget so far, is that $5 million for the Animal and Dairy Science Project at the college over in Oglethorpe County. It's a much needed thing. And hope we're gonna make hay with it pretty quick. So at this time, is anything else we need to do, Gardner? I would like to introduce Gardner Sapp, who is he's the guy that keeps us straight. I don't know what his title is, but he's a house research guy that keeps us all straight. And Wayne Allen is the legal counsel for this committee. Dr. Maddox, you want to explain your bill to us?
Yeah. Want me to go down there? You want
I don't know what's he supposed to do, Gordon. Do it here or go in there?
Why don't you do it right here since he's over there?
Yeah, just do it right there because we got the computer taking up space over
Okay.
there.
Well, first of all, I'm honored to be here this morning and present House Bill 999. Being a veterinarian for 46 years, I believe that this is something that I can really relate to, and serving both on the GVMA and President of the State, and then serving on the State Board for 13 years. This act came through as a new act in 2003 when I was President of the Board, and then we had a little problem because of the Attorney General's interpretation of some of the wording that came into it. So we're coming up now to try to satisfy the interpretation on two of these issues that be presented this morning with the Attorney General. Then we want to change a little bit on the grandfather clause because we have a shortage of veterinary technicians. And then the last one is strike two words, the homeopathy and botanical medicine. So let's start by saying this, that if you all would take your bill and look on page 6. Okay, veterinary medicine has evolved and changed. When I came out of veterinary medicine, graduated 46 years ago, it was mostly all males and mostly all rural practice and mostly all food animal and mules and cows and horses and pigs. And of course, there's a lot of help that you needed to help to restrain the animals. Had very few animals in the hospital, few dogs, no cats, and of course it has evolved now into some specialty practices and small animal medicine. And there came a need for some veterinary technicians. So the colleges were formed and technicians graduated, and of course then they were given exams by the state board, and once they got their pass, and they become techs, and they were allowed to do some duties assigned by the veterinarian that the assistant employees were not. So this morning we're going to make some changes in here because while I was on the board, one of the attorneys, he interpreted it the way that it was written up, and then we had to change, and they interpreted that we were allowing assistant veterinary assistants to do practices assigned by the veterinarian that was practicing veterinary medicine without a license. So this, with Wayne Allen's help and drawing this up, if you look on page 6, line 1, we start out. So no veterinary technician shall make a diagnosis or prognosis, prescribe treatment, perform surgery, or prescribe medication for any animal. So those are the exceptions. When we talked to Wayne said rather than list what we could assign to a veterinary technician and what we could assign to an assistant, would be much easier to put what they couldn't do. So if you'll see that first, then let's turn over next to page 10. And it starts out on page 10 at B, number 1B, and this goes into your assistant. So this is like a technician. This continues. No veterinary assistant shall make a diagnosis or prognosis, prescribe treatment, perform surgery, prescribe medication. And then that's what your veterinary technician can do. Then we go on to what an assistant can't do. They cannot perform a non-emergency intubation. They cannot induce anesthesia. They cannot perform central venous catheterization, nor perform arterial catheterization, or collect arterial blood. So that's the exceptions that the technician can't do. Okay? I think with these changes now and putting this down that it will serve to satisfy the Attorney General. What I'd like to do is tell you this morning in our audience we have, of course, Wayne Allen's attorney, we have GVMA representation here, we have the Georgia State Vet Board, Dr. Brett here, we have Department of Agriculture, Commissioner, and we have the Vet Tech representative, and the state veterinarian, Dr. Myers. I talked to her on the cell phone this morning. She's in Washington, D.C., but she did give us a letter that she endorses this. So the next deal that I'd like to go to now is the grandfather clause change, and this is on page 6, line 23. As you all know, I stated earlier that we need veterinary technicians to help the veterinarians, and they have to be trained a little bit better than just regular assistant. So the colleges came out a few years ago and started in training these technicians, and of course then they were licensed. Once they trained, they took the exam by the board. So the deadline to cut those off was July 1st of 2005. And we're still very, very short in those particular ones. And I believe if we had one of our gentlemen out there to give us the statistics, we were able to take employees that had been working with a licensed veterinarian and doing veterinary duties for a minimum of 5 years. Then they were able to be recommended by their veterinary supervisor to take this exam. And we had way high percentage of them to pass, and so we have a lot now of veterinary technicians that are grandfathered in through taking a test and passing it, and then passing a license, and we need some more. So in order to do this, we're asking in this bill to change the deadline from July 1st of 2005 until July 1st of 2008, which will be 3 more years. And then they will give them a whole year to take this exam. So that's pretty well on the vet techs for the grandfather clause. Then the last one, if we go now to page number 3, and it's line 13. If you notice there, they started talking about a licensed veterinarian, homeopathy, and botanical medicine. We have some insurance carriers that does not want to insure licensed veterinarians that call themselves homeopathy or botanical practitioners. And so we want to just strike this. And talking to the attorney here, he feels like it's best to take it out. I believe we've got 49 states that's already out, and we just don't mention it. So in essence, Mr. Chairman, that is the bill, and I'd ask you all to favorably pass it if possible. We have all of these representatives, and any of you would like to make a speak or on it, we'll entertain it.
Thank you, Dr. Mack. Does anybody on the committee have a question? Punch your button. Try that one.
To the offer, I just got a question. Do you think that you're really qualified to carry this piece of legislation?
Anybody else? Ms. Penny, you do?
Yeah, I've got a question. On page 10, I think you referred us to page 10. Or maybe I heard the wrong page number. Were there any changes? I mean, you referred to page 10. Did we have any changes on page 10?
Now, these were the ones, Dr. Penny, that we put in that they could not do. That's just a system. It was making a difference there. It's just an employee in the hospital. They cannot do this non-emergency intubation. They cannot do this anesthesia. They cannot perform the central venous catheterization. And they cannot perform the arterial catheterization of the left arterial root. These are
Okay.
a little bit more, I guess you say, requires a lot more expertise. So these technicians have been trying to do that.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Penny, the legal counsel said that's all new language. Read it's not underlined or anything.
Additional language. Okay, thank you.
LYNMORE? Did I get the right button?
Yes. You mentioned there were 49 states that has eliminated venous catheterization. Which state now is this?
Well, you still got it. You asked me to take it out.
Okay.
That's what I understand. We did all the research on it. Is that correct?
It's my understanding that it hadn't been deleted from 49 states of practice. Actually, it was
Chairman, we might, as a suggestion, get Ed to, Dr. Haffey to explain how that came about, because when it left our committee 3 years ago, or whenever it was, that language was not in there. And that language got added in the Senate side, and then when it came back to us for agrees and disagrees, it got agreed to get it changed at that time. But, and Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, if he would explain a little further and explain what the real problem is in having that in there, I think it would be of help.
Dr. Haffey, you might walk.
Sorry.
Dr. Mahaffey, tell us who you are.
I'm Ed Mahaffey. I work with the Georgia, I'm a retired veterinarian. I work with the Georgia Veterinary Medical Association. What has happened with the language homeopathy and botanical medicine in the Veterinary Practice Act is it is excluded in the definition of the practice of veterinary medicine from the practice. It says it's not the practice of veterinary medicine. And the unintended consequence of that is about 6 months after that law took effect in 2003, I got my first call from a veterinarian who earned a significant part of her living from homeopathy and botanical medicine, and she said her malpractice insurance carrier had contacted her and told her that their insurance company left it up to each state to define what constitutes the practice of veterinary medicine, and they would insure against those problems that occur in those activities. Since Georgia had seen fit to exclude homeopathy and botanical medicine from the practice of veterinary medicine, they were notifying her they were no longer going to cover her against any claims that arose as a result of her involvement in those activities. And since then, I've been notified by a number of other veterinarians that they've had similar communications. We have approached it. We approached it initially because I said maybe it'll be easier to change an insurance company's mind than to change the law again. So we approached the insurance carrier, and it is Representative Crawford had asked me. It is the single major carrier of malpractice insurance for veterinarians in the United States. It's the American Veterinary Medical Association's Professional Liability Insurance Trust that has made this ruling. And we tried to get them to revisit their ruling and perhaps change their minds. It took us a long time to get a ruling because they had to send it to their attorneys, the insurance company's attorneys, but at the end of the day, they stayed with their ruling and said they can't insure people against any such claims. Because, and they also indicated that if our Practice Act were simply silent on this subject, as are the Practice Acts of the other 49 states, they would be okay, and they would continue to insure folks.
Ellis, did you have a question for Dr. Mahaffey? Or?
Raise an issue. I don't think Dr. McCarthy can answer the question.
Can you hang on just a second? Does anybody have any questions for Dr. Mahaffey?
Dr. Haffey, how about explain how this came about, Bill, if you don't mind?
Well,
everybody on the same page.
My recollection is that during a Senate subcommittee hearing, the lobbyist for the group that sells, prescribes, I'm not sure what the correct term is, botanicals and homeopathic treatments to humans was in attendance at the meeting, and she said that a few of her members also occasionally prescribed these therapeutic modalities for animals, and she wanted to ensure that they would not be practicing veterinary medicine without a license, and asked for an exclusion. It was unfortunate that that exclusion got put into the definition of the practice of veterinary medicine and has resulted in these unintended consequences that I'm sure she didn't intend, the Senate didn't intend, and nobody anticipated.
Thank you, sir. Hit your button again, Alan.
It is my understanding that this is not included in the definition of practice in medicine, where the doctors, a person would be that does this would be guilty of practicing medicine without a license. And of course, I'm in an uncomfortable position of not really knowing what we're talking about when we're talking about homeopathy. I think I understand botanical medicine, but this. Now, we had some discussion here yesterday, and it was my understanding that the legal counsel was going to go back and move this into a different section of the bill so it would not be included in the practice of veterinary medicine and attempt to pacify the insurance companies in that regard. I don't want to do anything that would hinder the relationship between the veterinarians and the insurance companies, but at the same time, I don't have a good fix on the scope of people out here in the state that may be involved in this. That if we remove that, we would be putting them in a situation where they would be subject to a felony charge for practicing medicine without a law. There were some people that had enough concerns that they came and spoke before the Senate when this bill was in the Senate in '03, and it's my understanding that when the issue was raised was were they in a position whether they would not be in conflict with the Medical Practice Act, then the Senate automatically put this thing in. So there's some questions there that I'd like to get answered.
Mr. Chairman. Good. Am I on?
No, I don't know. All right, now y'all.
Okay. Could we ask our attorney, Mr. Wayne Allen, to sort of clarify that? We had another meeting yesterday afternoon and decided it should be deleted.
I was going to, but you were the one in the meeting, so that's why come Wayne is sitting up here close to us.
Mr. Chairman, results of the discussion yesterday is my understanding that the wishes were to simply strike the language and leave it at that. Just one point of clarification, the violation of the Practice Act is practicing veterinary medicine without a license is a misdemeanor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, as a follow-up to counsel, Wayne, didn't you do some research on looking at the Medical Practice Act also?
Yes, sir.
Could you mind explaining that a little bit further, please?
The words homeopathy or homopathic do not appear in the Medical Practice Act at all. Only places they occur throughout the code are this one instance in the Veterinary Practice Act and a few instances in the Food and Drug Act. They are not in the Practice of Physicians Act.
Mr. Chairman, as a follow-up to that, so there's not anywhere except where we have it in this bill, as it presently is, I mean in the statute where it presently is, that there's a definition in Georgia, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? Is there a motion on this bill?
I move that it pass, Mr. Chairman. Second. As presented.
As is, right?
As presented.
I have a motion and a second to pass out House Bill 999 as it was discussed and as we have in front of us. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All right, thank y'all. There was two people I left out a while ago when I was introducing people. One is Erica Askew. Stand up, Erica. She's our committee intern. She's from Greensboro, Georgia. And she's a country girl, so we like her. And the other one that everybody knows is Pat Harris, who is the committee secretary / administrative assistant / keep us straight / best secretary on Capitol Hill. She's in 226 over in the Capitol. And everybody knows if you need anything out of the Ag Committee, that's where you go. And she can handle it. Dean Angle, I apologize for this not being set up. Hope we didn't run too long and put you late to your next appointment. But the new dean of the College of Agriculture and Environmental Sciences at the university is with us today to give us a presentation. Dr. Angle came from he was Executive Associate Dean and Director of Maryland Agricultural Experiment Station and Maryland Cooperative Extension Service in the University of Maryland College of Agriculture and Natural Resources. You might can tell he's got just a little bit of an accent that's different from ours down here, but we're going to bring him around. Dr. Angle is a distinguished researcher in the field of soil microbiology and biochemistry. He is an authority on phytoremediation, which he can explain to y'all what that is. He received Agronomy Society's Environmental Research Award in '98, the Education Award in '03, and he also received the University of Maryland Distinguished Teacher Scholar Award in '03, which is the highest award made to a faculty member up there. He earned his bachelor's degree in agronomy and master's degree in soil microbiology from the University of Maryland and his doctorate from the University of Missouri. With him today is Randy Powers, that everybody knows with the university, and Mark Eason, who is the budget money guy for the College of Agriculture. So, Dean Angle.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's really a pleasure to be here with all of you today. I've had many opportunities to visit with a number of you on the committees and frankly, many times over the past couple months. But I really have been looking forward to this opportunity to meet you in more of a formal way. And what I'd like to do today, if it is okay with you, is take about 15 minutes and talk to you about the current state of the college, where our budgets are this year and what have come out of the governor's office, and where we see the college going in the future. So if you'll indulge me, let me begin by let me begin here. All right. Well, the computer seems to have frozen up. Let me resort to my paper copy. It appears to be searching for something. Anyway, first let me say that it really is a pleasure to be here because this is one of the best colleges of agriculture in the country, and so I had an opportunity to look at a number of places around the United States, and this was by far the best college of agriculture. It's a top 10 college of agriculture in the United States. I just want to talk to you about a couple different indicators of that. One of the main indicators of the success of any great research institution. I can't do this without my glasses either. One of the great measures of success of a research institution are what we call scientific publications and how many publications are produced every year. Right now, in terms of publications, we are number 2 in the United States, only behind the University of California at Davis. We rank ahead of the University of Florida, Cornell University, Purdue. A lot of the big agricultural schools that you think of, we are actually more productive than those institutions. We have one of the very best extension programs in the United States, probably ranks in the top 5. And for those of you who have a 4-H background, you already know this, but we have the best 4-H program in the United States. It is by far and away the model that other states look to as they are developing similar types of programs. So it's a great, great college, and it's really my pleasure and my thrill to be here leading such a fine institution. But we do have a problem, and I wanted to bring this up. And even though this is not directly involved with our budget, I think it is something that all of you need to be aware of. And that is that we do have concerns with our teaching program. We only have 1,200 students in the College of Agriculture. And for a college this size and one of the best colleges of agriculture in the country, this is a very, very low number. Now, that's not to say that Administratively, we need to be concerned about that within the university, but what I hear as I travel around the state, and I'm out every day, I hear from the poultry industry, the green industry, a number of the other traditional farming industries that we are not producing enough students to enter the workforce in Georgia, and consequently they're going to Auburn or Clemson to find the workers they need for their industry. And that's really a pretty damning message that is brought back to me. And so we've got to be producing more students at the University of Georgia. We're looking at a couple things which I think are going to have a tremendous impact on that over the next couple years. First of all, we do have a new transfer policy, and this relates both to agriculture and to the forestry college. But I now have permission, and Dick Porterfield, the Dean of the College of Forestry, has permission to have a significant impact on transfer students coming into the University of Georgia. Up until now, it's been very, very difficult to get in the College of Agriculture and Forestry through the transfer process. There were some barriers and hurdles that were put up in front of you. And frankly, a lot of kids, especially in South Georgia and the rural areas, those that want to study agriculture, have just given up on the College of Agriculture. And again, they're now going to Clemson or Auburn. So we've got to change that. And I think by affecting the transfer policy, which will allow me to have significant input into who gets into the college, I think we can go a long way to dispelling this notion around many of the rural parts of the state. Now, we're still going to have standards, and still not everyone is going to get in to the University of Georgia, but I will now have significant ability to help with that process. There is one issue here that is very important. I hope that you can take back to friends, relatives, neighbors, constituents. This new policy was only established about the first of this year, and what it does is that if you are going to be admitted under this new policy, you have to have your application in by February 1st. So we're only a little more than a week away from these transfer students having to have this information in. But if they get their application in by February 1st, and if they meet our minimum qualifications, essentially a 2.8 GPA from their transfer institution, they will be notified by April 1st of provisional admittance. Now, the student in their final spring semester, this semester they're in now, if they fail all the classes, and we're going to withdraw our provisional admittance. But if they pass their classes and do well with 2.8 or better, they will most likely get into the University of Georgia. So it's an excellent opportunity that exists only during this small window. Now, next year we'll have a much longer window to get this announced and to work on the policy, and so we expect it to be much more successful. But I have to be sure, and I have to have some success this year. President Adams and Provost Mace have taken a chance with this new policy. They're not convinced that the interest is there for the College of Agriculture and for the College of Forestry. So Dick Porterfield and myself, we believe there is the interest, and I travel around the state, I see the interest every day. But we've got to be able to prove it by having an appropriate number of transfer applicants into the university. So again, if you've got prospective students who you're familiar with and you know might want to come to the University of Georgia in Athens for the fall semester of this year, please get them this information right away. Tell them to contact me or Dean Broder in my office, and we'll work with them to help get that application in. But it is something that we have to move very quickly on. Secondly, and this is as much of an internal promotion mechanism, but something I did want you to be aware of, and I've initiated what I call the Dean's Promise, and this is a promise to all the kids in the College of Agriculture that they will have access to a very significant non-classroom experience. One of the things we want to make sure in agriculture and environmental sciences is that kids who come through our college don't just go to class. Some of them don't go to class either, but don't just go to class, go home and study all night, go to the class the next day. We want to make sure that they're trained to live in the real world. And to do that, you need to have an international travel experience. Certainly agriculture is an international business today. We want to make sure that they have an opportunity to work in a laboratory or work on a farm or to be an intern with an extension agent and spend the summer with them, but something that would help them in their future career and really create a more well-rounded individual when they leave the University of Georgia. So that's a promise that I've made to all the students. Now, there is a fundraising effort that goes on with this because obviously this is not inexpensive. For a student to leave the country, there are costs associated with that, and many students, especially from many of the rural areas of the state, simply can't afford to leave the United States for anywhere from a week or so up to a full semester, and sometimes a full year. Then the last thing I want to mention about our teaching program is that at Griffin, the governor has recommended that $500,000 be added into the budget of that institution. That institution is growing quickly. As you know, new academic programs are being developed on our Griffin campus. Through a recent tax initiative, $10 million will be made available to build a new learning center. And now we've been challenged to fill up that building with new programs and with new students. This $500,000 will help fund new faculty and new operating support to make sure that we can do that. We're very optimistic that the Griffin program will be one of the solutions for us to bringing in new students into the college. So let me now talk about the current year's budget. I'll begin with the FY06 supplemental budget first, and please stop me at any time if you have specific questions about this. There was $300,000 coming out of the governor's office for the agricultural experimentation, maintenance, and operations. I'm going to talk more about this later, but we have a very significant problem in the college in our ability to both maintain and operate our off-campus research facilities. $300,000 was appropriated this year. There was also $525,000 for a UGA biorefinery project. This is a very important project for us, and I think for agriculture in general in the state. You know as well as I do that it's very difficult. Farming is a very difficult business. The profit margins are low. Farmers go out of business. They come into business. It is a true business. Because of low prices, and especially now because of high operating costs, primarily associated with fuel and fertilizers, it's going to be even more difficult to make a living in the future. We also compete with China and Brazil and other countries that don't have, frankly, the level of regulation we have, that have lower costs for labor, lower land costs, lower land use, fewer land use issues, have many advantages, if you can call those advantages, that we do not. If we're going to make agriculture successful in the future, we will have to find added value for our traditional agricultural crops. And one of the value-added products that we can achieve in this state, especially because of the amount of rainfall and the amount of sun that we have in Georgia, will be the use of these byproducts for energy production. So the biorefinery is primarily focused around how can we take those waste products from the state of Georgia, whether it's a forestry industry or traditional agriculture, and use them to produce energy as a value added for the corn, the peanuts, the cotton, whatever it might be. So I think there's tremendous opportunity, and again, I think something that we're going to have to do in the future if we're going to assure a viable agricultural production system in this great state. For FY07, we had a capital outlay, as the chairman indicated, $5 million for the Athens Animal and Dairy Sciences livestock facility. If any of you have ever visited our current facility, you know that this is long overdue. Frankly, I'm surprised that our Animal Care and Use Committee has allowed us to continue to use our existing facilities. Now, it will be built in phases. The swine facility will be constructed first, which is by far the worst of all of our facilities. This will be a tremendous benefit to the college and to our animal industry in the state. I want to thank many of you in here because I know you have spent a lot of time working on this very same issue. The FY07 budget for the Agricultural Experiment Station, these are the funds that were provided this year, $700,000 for maintenance and operation. As I said, we have a very significant underfunding of our ability to support our off-campus research locations. And what we are having to do and what we have been doing for the last couple of years is to use essentially to chew up positions, to take faculty positions, staff positions, extension agent positions on the extension side, and convert those monies over to maintenance and operations simply to pay our electric bill and our utility bills. We didn't have any choice. We have to pay our bills. This money will then allow us to cover a portion of those bills and free up that money to begin to add some new faculty and staff back into the college. It won't be a one-for-one replacement, obviously, because fuel and utility costs are also going up at the same time. But here's a general breakdown of how those funds will be used. 50% are at our Tifton campus, 40% on the Griffin campus, and then we still need 10% for the Athens campus because there are several buildings at the University of Georgia Athens campus that we control, we maintain, and we support. For Georgia Cooperative Extension, $300,000 for maintenance and operation. And here again, you can see how those funds will be used. 51% of all those funds will be going to our 4-H camps. Our 4-H camps are aging, and while they are still the premier camps in the United States, we want to keep them that way. I'm going to come back to that in a couple minutes. Okay, let me follow up now with the FY07 budget for Georgia Cooperative Extension. $286,000 for animal and poultry waste extension agents. This will translate into about 8 agents around the state. We have not fully decided where those agents were going to be, will be placed. We're going to make some smart decisions, and we're in the process now of determining where they can best be focused. But the reason why we can use this amount of money and create 8 new extension agent positions is that the counties have been stepping up to help us out with this. Now we have a minimum county contribution of $12,500. Every county that we have gone to has volunteered to come up with this amount. And while I know the counties tend to look at unfunded mandates in some ways not something particularly desirable, this is one where they've been more than happy to step up to the plate. And as I said, every case where we have gone to them, they have agreed to leverage these state funds and achieve a greater level of employment throughout the state. And then we've got $100,000 for 4-H agents around the state. This will be turned into essentially 3 agents. Now, let me talk a little bit about what happens beyond this year. And this is not just for 2008, but I want to lay out some of the needs for the college over this could possibly be the next decade. But I think it's important for you to understand what I will be talking about over the next couple of years. First of all, in the experiment station, we still have a huge deficit in maintenance and operations, about $5.3 million, even after having done well this year in your support for the agricultural experiment station. Again, these are fuel, utilities, positions that are eaten up to pay these costs. On the extension side, we have 2 basic different types of positions. Our specialist positions, these are individuals that often will have a regional or occasionally statewide ability to work on a particular commodity. Often they'll have a PhD, but their job is not to be in the Athens campus. Rather, their job is still to travel around the state and help producers with issues at hand. These are really first-line researchers in many ways. In the year 1991, we had 213 specialists. This is down to 101 in the most recent budget year, 2001. We never need to get up to 213 again. We work smarter. There are better ways of delivering information, but as we have gone through a strategic planning process, we think we need to be up to about 119 specialists within the next couple years, again, within the next 5 or 10 years, and we'll be able to meet all of the needs of the state at that time. On the agent side, peak year 1991, again, we had 486 agents around the state. This dropped down to 277 in 2004. We've had 2 good years coming out of Atlanta last year, and with the proposed governor's budget this year, it appears to be going in a positive direction for extension as well. So we would expect to be up to about 321 agents in 2006. We'd like to be up to 400. Ultimately, we never need, again, to get up to 486 where we were at our peak. We work smarter. We position individuals more strategically in the past. But with 400 agents, that if we could get to that point, we would have essentially our ability to meet all of the needs throughout the state. There are a couple other issues I just want to raise, and these are not specific proposals at this time, but Extension has also a maintenance and operation deficit, about $1.2 million over the long term. And then finally, our Rock Eagle 4-H camp. As I said, this is the premier 4-H camp in the world. I know that some of you have gone through the 4-H program and have spent probably many summers at Rock Eagle. When you're there, you probably stayed in the same cabins that exist today. You know that they are aging, and at some point in time, they're going to have to be renovated. Now, we fully expect to have to raise some of this money privately, and this will be a development opportunity that we're looking at now. But we may need to talk to many of you about this in the future, because I don't think we'll be able to raise all the money that is needed for that camp. But it'll be a high priority for the college in the future. So that's essentially where we are now, where we've been in the recent past, and where ultimately we'd like to go in the future. But I have just one comment that I'd like to leave with you, and this is kind of my vision of the college. And I'm not speaking for President Adams, and I'm not speaking for my faculty or Randy Powers, but the University of Georgia has a very unique opportunity. I get to visit campuses, land-grant universities all over the country, and I can tell you that for the most part, they have decided either they are going to be a premier research institution, and in essence an Ivy League research institution, and to give up in that public service to the state in which they're located, or they're going to be very much focused on public service and really not strive to be a great research institution. The University of Georgia, because of the wonderful support that you have shown for the institution over the years and for the public support, I think it's one of probably 3 or 4 universities around the country that can do both. Not many places have the capability to do this, but I believe we can be a top 10 university, publicly funded research university. We're about 18 or 19 in the country, and we're continually moving up. But we can continue to remain true to the roots of the university, to serve the citizens of the state of Georgia through extension and through other outreach mechanisms, and by conducting research that is important to the state of Georgia. So as I said, not many great universities around the country can do this. You're not going to see this at Cornell or Purdue or the University of Minnesota. But Georgia, because of our unique situation and because of the support that we find here, I think this is one place we can do it. And I personally am very excited to see that seems to be a goal for the university to move in this direction. So with that, I'm going to stop. And again, I very much appreciate the opportunity to visit with all of you. I've enjoyed getting to know you.
Impressed, and I've heard a lot of great things about you, and we're just proud to have you here in Georgia. Down one thing I did want to mention, as you know, with the budget cuts in the past years, we did lose a lot of research people, a lot of extension people. And one of the research people we lost was the vacancy was never filled, was a pecan specialist.
Yes, sir.
I think it was Tom Crocker who had that position, and when he retired, he's now, I think it's a county agent. He's sort of splitting his time. He's a county agent and pecan specialist. And as you know, that Georgia's got the largest pecan industry of any state in the United States, and there's a growing industry that's especially in middle Georgia, where they continue to set out new varieties. And just last year, it was a proven a period with so much moisture and rain and diseases we had that is very important that we try to get a specialist, full-time specialist back. And I certainly would do everything I could to help push for that if it's if we need to push it on your end and also an extension end, and I think one position would straighten that part out.
Well, I appreciate the comment, Representative Ray, and I will promise you now that one way or another, we will have a full-time position sooner rather than later in pecans. I'm still not pecans. Excuse my accent, but in fact, I did talk to the chairman of the Pecan Commission recently, and also promised him the same thing, that we will have full-time support, and that we will also backfill in for the loss of the extension agent when we move an individual full-time into a specialist for pecans.
LYNMORE?
I haven't had the opportunity to sit down and talk with you, Dean, but the 1890 institution that's set forth by the State University, will that be duplication of services, or are you all going to work together and try and make sure that what they're doing down there, that you're not doing that? And
well, let me talk about my history first. I come from the University of Maryland, where we also had an 1890 school in Maryland, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, and we worked hand in glove together. In fact, many of our programs, you could not tell the two apart. Our extension program was one and the same. There was no 1890 or 1862 extension program. There was one extension program that was a joint program, jointly administered. Our research programs were similarly integrated. I haven't seen the same level of integration with Fort Valley State University here in Georgia. But there is still a significant amount of communication. Our extension programs are, in general, well coordinated. Some of the Fort Valley Extension agents are in our facilities, and vice versa. I talk with the Dean of Agriculture on a regular basis. One of his very close colleague administrators, frankly, is one of my best friends. And so we have the opportunity to work very closely together. I think on the research side, we can do better. I think there is greater need for coordination of research between our two institutions. And that is something we're talking about. There are great opportunities to do that. I think there are benefits to be had for both institutions through better cooperation. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Any more questions? Dean, thank you very much. I apologize for the
Thank you, Chairman.
system not being set up, and I hope it hadn't made you late for your next meeting you have to be at.
No, sir.
But thank you very much, and appreciate the info.
Well, I appreciate being here.
We'll be calling you. Trust me. Commissioner Irwin, thank you for coming and being with us today. Taking time out of your schedule to come over here. If there's nothing else, we stand adjourned. Thank y'all all for coming.